Welcome back, viewers at home. As we said, tonight is all about choosing your wealth, being your health, and not just money. And understanding today's day, or rather celebrating International Midwives Day, and really understanding the role of these essential, individuals who continue to support women in a crucial time of their lives, underplayed but quite crucial. But for that, I am joined by our health expert, Ronald Abvajee, who is here to share insight and really give us more information in a layman's term, so that we don't leave here feeling like, okay, I need Google, so that we are able to show our support correctly and also know what to do and how to do it. Good evening, Ronald, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
It's always a pleasure, and I love how you refer to Google, showing your age, because now which generation you are, because you didn't say the AI and ChatGPT.
Eish. My bad. I think, but then they'll never know, because there's a whole era. But then anyways, before we get started on understanding this day we're celebrating, I think for our viewers at home, let's just get to dissecting what is a midwife before we get to the important work they're doing, and how we can show our support and really our respect to them. Let's take a look.
A midwife, it started with a name, just with woman, and it evolved so much after that. So a midwife actually monitors moms, low-risk moms, which means that there's no complications, and we do that by assessing them antenatally, so that's throughout the pregnancy. We also, so that is their health and their well-being. And then we're also assessing the pregnancy itself to ensure that they can give birth vaginally. And then we assessing the baby's well-being. So we walk with them throughout the pregnancy by doing these monitoring and these checks. And then through the pregnancy, it comes to the birth, we assist them with the birth. So we specialize in low-risk vaginal births. That's our specialty. Help them, assist them with the birth itself, and then we walk with them throughout the postpartum period. So that's assisting them with breastfeeding. If the baby has jaundice, we assist them with that. We take them through the psychological aspects. So if they're going through any postpartum depression and tearfulness, we're there to guide them through that as well. And I always say a midwife is with you for a lifelong journey, because we generally see our moms even when the baby turns a year, and then throughout the next pregnancy as well.
Now that was a lovely video, really explaining entailing what a midwife is. And I think right now, being joined by Ronald, I think it's best for me to get more information in understanding this field. And I think, Ronald, my question to you tonight is, how would you describe, the presence and support of, midwives in the positive role that they play in assisting women, not only through their pregnancy in terms of, delivery and labor and so forth, but also maintaining that mental health and, most importantly, physical health?
Absolutely, they play such a key role. Now, the reality of why a midwife is so important, and qualified midwives, we know that you need to have a nursing the diploma degree, and then you go and do a post-qualification in midwifery.
Okay.
So you do understand and have a very strong clinical base. It's an NQF6 qualification.
Oh, okay.
So it is available out there. The next thing is that we are facing a maternal crisis globally, because women are being over-medicalized when it comes to being pregnant, and of course giving birth and post-birth, and of course under-supported. So with that intersection, midwives play a key role of support, awareness, education, guidance, psychological safety, and for women to be seen and to feel safe. What does that do? It decreases or reduces cortisol, which is the stress hormone, produces more oxytocin, so you feel more connected. And did you know that the World Health Organization has stated that when you have a consistent midwife throughout your pregnancy and post-pregnancy, but in the pregnancy, you actually have a 16% reduced risk of losing the fetus or the baby in the first 24 weeks of pregnancy. And then 24% of people will not lose their baby preterm. This is what the stats show. And this is why the emotional, psychological connection is so important. So they bring connected-based care, and also, never forget, they understand cultural nuances, which is even more important.
So it's fair to say that they actually offer a very holistic approach in terms of, health as well as wellness compared to what other professionals within the health industry can offer?
Well,
Or-
it's slightly different.
Okay.
So when you look at the spectrum of a woman going to a allopathic or a Western medical qualified practitioner, it's often with a gynecologist.
Okay.
And with a gynecologist, you often have the nursing staff around that when you're going through the birth process, depending on the type of birth that you then choose. And that is very much focused on data, insight, medication, and of course, dealing with it very clinically, situational based care, which is great, which is important. But the other side of the coin that is missing is the connected-based care. And connecting with you mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and culturally, to hold a space to inform and educate you, to hold a space to let you feel safe and seen, and to guide you on a process of what the midwives fundamentally believes is more of a physiological birth rather than a medically driven birth.
No, there's another myth that's been going on within the health sector to say, when ladies or the women are in delivery, there's this thing of all of them nowadays are just, getting the cesarean. And the question now is it based on a healthy choice or is it based on whatever agenda it's based on? And I don't want us to focus on that because I'm just highlighting that for just to contextualize my next question in terms of how does, a midwife's focus on natural, non-invasive birth methods promote that better recovery as well as a smoother transition for both mother and baby? Because after all, they do form that connection for 9 months, if not more.
I mean, I've heard cesarean sections being called sunroof births, where you can schedule it in, have your hair done, lashes done, in you go, out you go. And that's what it's, many people refer to it as in a jest way. So when looking at that, there are so many complications and recovery issues that could happen from a cesarean section. Don't get me wrong, from a physiological birth perspective, that a midwife would definitely promote, where you have less impact of medication on you and you're focusing on the ability of the body to give birth in a safe space, in a space where the mother's a lot more calm, supported and guided. That analogy that I'm sure many people have seen, where the mom is giving birth and the legs are in the stirrups and she's holding onto her partner's hand and squeezing that hand so tightly the partner passes out. What the midwives bring is not the ability to pass out, but the ability to support you. That you don't have to hold the hand so tight, but you hold it gently, but you still feel that connection. Connected-based care. So when you look at C-sections, we also know that there's epidurals that happen. And the epidurals are injections that go into the spine that essentially look at numbing, from the waist down as you either go through a natural birth or C-sections. And did you know that with consistent midwifery care, stats have shown that 12% of women do not need epidurals to manage the pain. So don't get me wrong, there are also complications.
Yeah.
But when it looks at overall well-being from a physiological sense and the ability of the body, the midwives really promote that. But ultimately, if it's not in isolation and a woman doesn't choose to go fully with a midwife or water birth, etc., then they become part of an amazing team of clinical and midwifery to hold a space for the mom. Because who's the most important person here? The mom. Not the doctor and not the midwife. Support the mom.
And definitely they do need the support because you can imagine, when you're about to go to labor, you're also like scared, especially you can consider that for like first time, pregnancies. And now considering, the postpartum that we hear about in terms of, for the longest time it was seen as no, they're just, overreacting. But now when studies come to back that, then we get to see the existing support and it's slowly getting there, but it's not where we hope for it to be. Coming to my next question now in terms of how do we show support and appreciation to midwives? How do we form that culture in terms of ensuring that we give them the respect, we give them that sense of appreciation? Because the work that they're doing, as through what you've shared tonight, is quite vital.
It's critical. So the role of midwives and how we show support is to understand their role. And their role is essentially prenatal care and postnatal care. And holding the mom in a cradle of care. So prenatal care, we spoke to nutrition, exercise, movement. It's to do with psychological safety. It's to do with education, information, and to really hold that space for the mom. Postnatal, you mentioned it. Postpartum depression, breastfeeding, the emotional shift, and the often under-discussed transition of identity to a mother-led identity, to a two-time mother, three-time mother-led identity. How do you hold that space psychologically and emotionally for the mom while helping her physically post giving birth? That's when you understand the role. How can we support? By not judging, but rather seeking to understand. You do not know what you don't know. And what you see on television, reading magazines is not necessarily the truth. So hold a space for midwives that allopathic medicine, current medical practitioners in the Western sense of study, and midwifery and midwives can actually come together to hold a space. It's like doctors and clinical specialists working with traditional healers. You're marrying the two worlds because on either side of the coin are belief systems, but the coin is care. So you bring it together to hold that space, to not put the mom and the baby at risk, but rather to enhance them in every facet of their being.
Now, you've shared something quite interesting, and with that being said, why do you, or if there is the existence of such, why do you believe that the idea of collaboration between these two, professions is quite, I don't want to say impossible or it's close to non-existent. Why is it so slowly approached? Because as you mentioned, when we talk about actual doctors and traditional healers, it's like, oh no, that's like mixing water with oil. In the sense of, midwives as well as the other field, how is it that it's not like an instant thing where everyone is supporting and everyone is like, willing to go into it?
We've gone through different stages of the medical fraternity. So when you look at what people are now going back to and appreciating is ancient care, Ayurvedic care, Chinese medicine care, traditional healing, African traditional healing, with the herbs in particular. And when you look at these kinds of care, where are people going to right now? They're heading to the roots of plant-based medicine, right? And the plant-based medicine, yes, there are psychedelics. I'm not talking about that. What I am talking about are the herbal medications that don't have the side effects of pharmaceuticals. Now, what has happened, we are reaching a point where we are beginning to open ourselves up to caring for the individual rather than caring for our ego or working in silos. Because you are either going to treat for the person to come back, so you keep on treating, or you're going to treat to heal, treat to empower and enable. And that is where the transition is coming when we look at what well-being actually is being well and helping that person thrive. And that's where that marriage is coming together. It's a process, but if we are consistent with that process, just like certain people in studio with us who have restarted their exercise routines that are complaining of sore legs, I hope they are consistent with it to achieve the results and not every 3 months have sore legs, right? We have to be consistent with this marriage of the two trains of thought and practices to look after the individual as a holistic team.
This reminds me of the conversation we had regarding value-based healthcare. This is, I forgot that word. It's value-based versus cost-based, something like that, or price or profit-based healthcare. But I really reckon that, and I'm hoping it's something that we achieve in South Africa. And just to close off our conversation is, as someone who's or rather a wellness expert, what would be your personal vision when it comes to the future of maternal well-being as well as, infancy well-being and just health around the, pregnancy conversation?
The reality of being pregnant and giving birth, if it's a natural birth, is taking a watermelon and pushing it through a lemon. So that's a baby being pushed through, and having a natural birth. So that is a lot on the body, and the body's adaptations to prepare physiologically for that is amazing, from the release of relaxin and different physiological processes. But to neglect and negate the emotional and the mental preparation as well is something that we should empower individuals with and moms with, their partners with, and their families with to hold a space. Because when you build psychological safety, opportunity to thrive is endless. So open up to understand before we seek to judge, and then have a look at the impact, because the stats don't lie.
No, I know I said that was the last question, but I'm going to just prop one in. Seeing the future, where do you see midwives?
As a critical part of the medical value chain. Critical part. The same way I see psychologists, the same way I see counselors, the same way I see traditional healers, that not in isolation but as collaborative, because that way we eliminate wasteful expenditure from a government perspective, because we're handling the care in what's relevant and what is needed mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically to impact financially. So revenue-based care versus value-based care is where the marriage can actually be. You can still make money and have a living, but the value that you give to the individual needs to be priceless.
Ronald, thank you so much, for coming in and really painting the picture for us in understanding this profession. Because at times we are here, midwife, and I think living in a patriotic society, when you see wife or woman, it's like, okay, whatever. But when you see a lot of, masculine terms, engineer, doctor, it's so exciting. And really tonight you really made the conversation around midwife exciting, inspiring, and definitely you equipped us in how we can continue to show support and appreciation, because as you mentioned, they are playing a critical role in supporting the women who continue to, birth generations in that sense. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
An absolute pleasure.
Viewers at home, tonight we're having an amazing conversation in light of International Midwives Day. Hope you guys did enjoy that conversation, as we're looking forward to your comments as well as your insight in terms of what's your view in terms of this profession, specifically midwives. But for now, let's head over to a break. We'll see you just after this.